Hi, and welcome to Prepping Essentials.
Good morning, it's 7:30 on Saturday the 10th of October. Just making my way down to the land on the motorway today because the side roads there's way too much standing water. As always, not quite sure what we're going to get done today, but let's find out. Well, here we are, down on the land. Bit of a wet day again. We've had 2 weeks now of rain and wind. It's a lot lighter this morning, so that's good. All this wet weather just makes me wonder about the stability of all this aggregate I put down late last year and start of this year, particularly around where the car stands. It does look like it's really holding up well, I have to say, because you can clearly see where I have a habit of just coming off slightly to do a 3-point turn. You can see that, particularly today, it is a bit wet and sticky. Anyway, I'm going to get myself down into the cabin. Definitely need a fire today, and we'll see what we can get done. Well, first things first, as usual, I've got the polytunnel opened up. I'll give you a quick whiz around the garden bits. Jerusalem artichoke, they've got to be ready for lifting now, I would have thought. So I'll take a little look at those. This mixed bed of pumpkin and squash, no real change here. We've got this little one down here that's been chewed a bit by the rabbits. And we've got a couple round this side. That one is still growing, looking at the colour of it, versus this one, which was the first one that started to grow and was nibbled by the rabbits. This one, to me, has stopped growing now. That stalk is just about done, so I think I'm going to just take that and we'll see what comes of it, I guess. I'll run quickly round the polytunnel. There's not a great deal in there. Let's pop that down for now. Tomato forest is still the forest, and it's not doing a great deal, to be honest. I think we're at the end now for this. There are still quite a few green tomatoes. Let's find some examples. There's a couple there. There's a few more buried. Okay. Get out of the way. There's a few more buried back there, and there's a few more scattered around. There's one or two in here that, there you go, there's a red one there. There's definitely another red one round here somewhere. Can't see it now though. Where's it gone? Oh, it's there. There's another red one in there. So there are a few scattered around the forest, but to be honest, I'm inclined to start stripping these back now, because I'm not going to lose anything by doing that. Everything else, stupid as it might sound, I am impressed with these little cuttings that I took from the elderberry trees. This one clearly is definitely budding. I don't see any signs on that one, but there's another one buried inside a tomato forest. I can get to it, which is this one, and you can see that that too is in leaf. So I've definitely, out of those three, I've definitely got two that should continue to grow into trees. Everything else pretty much as you've seen before, and a lot of this I'm inclined to just strip out. Cucumber is still producing cucumbers, though there's only a couple kicking around. That last remaining pea, don't know what to do with that. I might be tempted to leave that, but take the rest out. I have been saving these pods. I've just been letting them grow rather than pick them for seed. I did take some for seed, you'll remember, in the previous video. So at least they've served that purpose of producing seed. Strawberries seem to be dying back now, which is good. I think I'll just leave those to one side now and maybe stop watering them. Same on this side, you can see the colour of the leaves there. They're dying back as well. So a bit of a clear out required. Whether I'll do that today or tomorrow, not sure. I'm waiting for wood, and I'll explain that a little bit later on. This barrel of potatoes, again, daft as it might seem, really pleased with this. I wasn't sure whether these would actually sprout, let alone put on all this growth. So it looks like I am going to get another full harvest towards the back end of this year, which is really nice. The other two barrels, they had some cauliflower seedlings put in, which again, to be fair, seem to be coming on really well. This one, I think that was the last one that went in, probably a bit on the small side, and it might be a bit doubtful whether they'll survive or not. I did also stick some potato tubers in here. I am not expecting them to sprout, but it's a little experiment. We'll see what happens with those. Raised beds, pretty much as they were last week. The succession crop of carrots, doing well in there. Some nice strong growth on them, so I am going to get at least 4 buckets of carrots later in the year. Onions, I think they're pretty much done, so they might have to come out. Again, whether I'll leave them till next weekend or not, we'll see, I guess. Middle raised bed, cauliflowers, strong growth on them. I'm stunned because this time of year I wasn't expecting any problems with butterflies and caterpillar damage, but clearly you can see on these they have been chewed. So I'm quite surprised by that. I didn't think there'd be any butterflies and caterpillars around at this time of year, but there are clearly. Having said that though, we've still got quite a few strong plants in there, so again, fingers crossed I'll get a crop. Beetroot is the beetroot. I'm not expecting a great deal out of them. There's only a few in there as an experiment, but as you saw last week, they have produced, and there's one there definitely ready for coming out. Garlic in that one, forgot to mention, same as before, expecting a crop off that in the new year. A couple of stray onions. Oh yeah, before I forget, pumpkin. We have got, that's the latest one, which has been chewed. There's another one buried under there, which, touch wood, so far has managed to escape the rabbits. We've got this one round here, which hasn't escaped the rabbits. And there's another one somewhere down here. Yeah, there it is, the biggest one of the bunch. So yeah, let's just wait and see, I guess. And then surprise, surprise, look at this. We've got definitely 1, maybe 2, if that survives. More coming. You just don't know, do you? I mean, that bed was attacked to death by rabbits right through the year, and yet it seems as we're heading towards the winter season, it's putting on a spurt of growth. Quite bizarre. Unlike the squash bed, which, to be fair, really only has this one, which has been chewed by the rabbits. Now again, looking at the colour of that, and just trying to dig my nail into the skin, it is making a mark, as you can you see, or can you not see? Yeah, there. You can see I've dug my nail in. So it's not ready yet, but I don't think it's far off. Bit disappointing, this patch. We have got one more coming here, which is again a new arrival, so hopefully that will survive. but I do believe that is the only crop. I mean, look, it's still putting flowers out, for God's sake. What's that about? I don't get it. There were a couple in here which have died off, but I think, yeah, look, there's one more there which might come. So again, a bit bizarre for me because I'm not used to growing these, and I don't know how long or how far into the season they'll continue to grow and crop. But since we've got some new ones coming, who knows? Maybe they will continue, because it's still putting flowers out, look. You can see here. Strange, strange. More research, and perhaps if anybody grows them, ping me some comments in the comments section to the video along the lines of, you know, just how late in the year do these continue to produce and grow and crop? Because we're due frost any time now. There was a very small one just the other day, and surely when the frost hits, that's it for these, I would have thought. But as I say, I don't really know. This is experimental for me, pumpkins and squash, so feel free to share your knowledge with me. Anyway, I need to get myself inside because I'm getting soaking wet. I haven't even lit the fire yet, and my hands are telling me to do that. So I'll get that on, and then we'll have a little think about what we might want to get done and what we might want to have a chat about, because we'll definitely have some kind of cabin chat today, that's for sure. Watering system's working well. Well, the watering system's been working well for me, but I have noticed as I've been coming to refill the tanks that the cold conditions in here, the battery is only lasting a week before it starts to drop. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a quick check and perhaps a little bit of a charge up. I don't know if you'll be able to see this from here or not. That multimeter, you might be able to see it. See the scale. Yeah, I think maybe you can. This is a multimeter. Anything that you're doing with electrics, this is a great thing to have in your equipment kit, from a safety perspective, so that before you start working on anything electrical, you can check to see whether it's actually carrying live current or not. Top tip there, before you start messing about with wires. But more importantly for me, to see what the condition of my batteries are like. So it's quite simple. Probe positive onto terminal positive on the battery, probe negative onto terminal negative on the battery, and the little display shows what you've got in terms of voltage going through. So there it's showing me 12.1 on the dial on this here. I don't know if you can see it or not. So yeah, it's fluctuating a little bit, but it's hovering around the 12. So I'm going to just pop that onto the solar panel just to give it a quick trickle charge while I'm down here today, just to keep on top of it. I don't want to leave it for too long without topping up. If the battery gets too far down in terms of the amount of charge it's holding, over time it will destroy the battery. So never let your batteries get too much discharged. Do keep an eye on them and just keep topping them up. So I'll quickly rig that up on the solar panel, and it can be charging away while I'm warming up and having my coffee. Okay, so that's the panel in. It's not exactly optimal conditions because it's inside the polytunnel on a, as you can hear, a rainy, cloudy, dull day. But having said that, it's doing what it's supposed to do, and although it's not going to get the best that it possibly can in terms of light, let's have a quick look and see if you can see that or not. Yeah, you can. So it's showing 12 volts and the panel is feeding power into the battery, so that's good news. So I'll just leave that lying there, and because it's inside, out of the weather, come on camera, focus please. It's just not wanting to focus. That's better. Yeah, because it's inside, out of the rain, I don't need to worry too much about it. I've just popped the cover on the battery box just to keep any stray water away from the connections, but that can sit there now if necessary all day today and all day tomorrow. It's got a built into the charging system, it's got a cutout so that at night time when there isn't any sunlight, it's not going to reverse and suck power out the battery, it'll just shut down. And the battery is still powered on for the pump, so come, I think it's 4:30 tonight, that should kick on again automatically. It'll continue to do that, and I could really leave it here as long as I want. It would just continue to operate and continue receiving a charge from the panel. So, good job done. Get myself back out to the cabin, and still haven't lit the fire yet or boiled the kettle, but I am going to do that right now because I'm a bit cool and I'm in need of a coffee. Right, kettle's on, coffee cup's waiting, and whilst I'm waiting for that to boil, I'm just filling up this water container to top up the polytunnel, and I'll set about getting this fire lit because it is cool in here. Well, that's the fire lit, so we'll get that going, get a decent base built. Water is almost finished and the kettle's boiled, so we're ready for coffee time. Well, here we are with another cabin chat. Definitely not the weather to be outside today. It's not terribly cold. Fingers are a little bit cold. It's more that damp, because it's raining and it's overcast. It's hard to describe what I mean, really. You'll know what I mean. It gets inside your bones. It's not a monsoon coming down in terms of volume of water. It's just this constant drip, drip, drip of wet and cool, which does seem to get inside you. It's been big jacket weather today for sure, and it's nice to get sat down with my cup of coffee. I don't know if you'll see it or not on the video, but wood burning stove's got a nice little base there, so even though the door's open, I'm nice and toasty warm here, sat at the side of the fire. A few different things today just to chat about. I will do a longer chat, lessons learned video later. Maybe tomorrow, I don't know. I don't intend to be doing anything big in terms of work at the cabin today. It's more a potter around, maintenance day, measure up day. You'll have seen earlier, there's always something to do. And I've got that watering system in the polytunnel, which is great. It's working a treat now with that new pump. I've got the power in there from the battery box, but because it is a battery that's not constantly being recharged, such as the electrical system in the cabin here, which is always on charge, keeping the batteries maintained, that's not. It's just a battery in a box, sitting there in all weathers and all temperatures, and it has been drained down. So I had a quick check this morning, and you'll have seen it's now on charge. For anybody who's new to solar energy, It is the future. um, Having a battery box is a great way to start off experimenting with your solar. And that folding panel that I've got, although it's only small in terms of power output, it only puts out 100 watts at peak capacity. It's definitely going to be nowhere near that now, sat inside the Polytunnel, that's for sure. But it is a good way to get started. It's cheap enough for people to buy, and you're not going to be able to do too much damage to it if you get things wrong. Little self-contained units like that are quite forgiving. So if you are thinking about solar and you're not quite sure how to get started and how to experiment with it, do have a scroll back through the videos on the channel. There's a lot of videos on there showing solar and other kinds of alternative energy for that matter, but showing you how you make the battery box, showing you that portable solar panel. It's in lots of videos, what it can and can't do, and how to wire things up on a 12-volt system. And then as you progress, you can take a look at the ones from the cabin build, which show a bigger system and a more complex system, because from my little off-grid system here, I'm powering all manner of things, whether that's lighting, rechargeable power sockets for things like laptops, phones, water pump. The list is pretty much endless. Just needs a little bit of thinking about, but it's all there on the channel videos if you do want to get started with solar and need to have a little bit of guidance or knowledge. Kind of gone off on a tangent there. That's not what I was going to talk about today, but hopefully that is useful to somebody. In terms of what I did really want to talk about today, a couple of things. First is a general update on, a bit like the President, State of the Union, what's going on here in the UK and perhaps a couple of other places around the world connected to preparedness, and a little bit about what I'm doing this weekend and what I might be doing, fingers crossed, next weekend down here on the cabin. So in terms of where are we nowadays with the current crisis that is COVID, here in the UK we've been building up again. We had our big peak back in kind of April, May. Things quietened down a little bit through June, July and August, as we had our lockdowns and restrictions in place. Everyone thought it was all over. It's not. As predicted by lots of people, including myself, we have had a second wave. Other countries through Europe have also had a second wave, and beyond. Generally, globally, people have started to go through a second wave. Here in the UK, figures of confirmed cases have skyrocketed. They're back at levels that we saw during the first peak back in March, April time. I don't really want to get too controversial with COVID, but it is kind of logic that having gone from a situation back at the start of the crisis where we weren't doing testing and we didn't have capacity to mass test, to where we are now, where we're into hundreds of thousands of tests every single day, logic does kind of dictate that if there is some kind of infection or virus floating around in the system, that the more you test, the more you're going to find. Does that make sense? Clearly, in the media, I think a lot of the media and a lot of the public are kind of struggling with that concept. This second wave isn't suddenly a new thing that's arrived in the country. This is the old thing. This is COVID Mark 1 that arrived back in, there's a debate there as well to be had, February, March time. It's the same thing. It's not gone away per se. It's always been there, and people have always been getting infected with it. It's just that now we're testing massively bigger amounts of people. So we are going to find more. The more we test, the more we'll find. Up until such time, really, and again, I don't want to get too controversial with this, until we get to that stage where this herd immunity kicks in, where everybody's got it or everybody's had it, and then it will start to die down. So getting away from potential controversy over how bad is COVID, is it real, is it not real? Yes, it is real. Yes, people have died during the COVID outbreak, but not necessarily from COVID itself. COVID might have contributed, but that's not what killed them. Other things have killed them. And that's it now, stop. We're straying into the controversy territory. If anybody is interested in controversy, pop a note in the comments section. But yeah, so it's here again in big numbers, and the government has responded a couple of times after the initial lockdown with a variety of smaller scale, regional, local lockdowns. Over the last few weeks, the intensity of these restrictions has increased. We've gone to maximum of 6 people meeting in a group anywhere, indoors, outdoors, wherever. And this weekend in particular, there's another flurry of activity, and it looks like on Monday we're going to get some more announcements from government about even more significant restrictions. So why do I bring all this up? With that in mind, cast your minds back to, in the UK anyway, March, April time, when the real panic was setting in. I did a little video one Friday afternoon when I came home, on the way home from work. I called in at the supermarket and I did a short video clip as part of a larger video showing you the empty shelves. There is a distinct possibility, particularly with Christmas approaching. We've already seen people stocking up for Christmas. Supermarkets have reported sudden upsurge in things like turkeys and frozen meat and other such things, way above levels they would normally see this time of year. So it is out there. There is a kind of a underlying panic just bubbling away, waiting to hit boiling point. So with that in mind, I would urge people who haven't topped up for a while to top up, or people who haven't really took this so seriously to take it a bit seriously and top up, or get started if you haven't already in building up a long-term supply of food. Another thing that's cropped up over the last couple of weeks is the focus on the economic impact. Here in the UK, government has just announced that they're going to extend the job support or furlough scheme. They're calling it something else. Can't remember what they call it now off the top of my head. But essentially, before, the government would pay a worker 80% of the salary if they had to stop working due to COVID. Clearly, we're talking about hundreds of billions of pounds cost to the government or the taxpayer by doing that. There was a panic setting in that was coming to an end this month, October, and you would suddenly see the unemployment figures go through the roof again, because they already have once. So this weekend, government's announced that they're going to extend that job retention scheme. They're going to pay 66% of a worker's salary, so long as they are at least doing something, or if their business has been closed down due to COVID. And that's for 6 months, so that takes us into the new year. So the huge economic disaster that I've talked about in a couple of videos so far this year, it is still there, waiting in the sidelines. It's not gone away. It's not been fixed by the actions that have been taken so far by government. It's kind of been just pushed down the road a little bit by this extension of the job retention scheme. So yeah, what probably we would have seen this huge spike and spike in unemployment and big crash in the economy just at the wrong time for most people, Christmas time. I think that's now been shuffled into a problem to be addressed in the new year. So again, with that in mind, do be ready. Who knows how secure everyone's jobs are. Hopefully none of you have been affected yet. Personally, I'm just waiting. My company is definitely going to be downsizing, shall we say, in the coming weeks, and everybody's just waiting to see how big a downsize that's going to be, and specifically who individually is going to be impacted by that. So it is real. There is potential for bigger problems to come down the line as we head through winter and out into the new year. So just be conscious of that and do what you can to make your personal circumstances a little bit more resilient, whether that's building up your preps so that you've got enough essential supplies to keep you going if, God forbid, you did lose your job, or perhaps setting aside as much money as you can in savings so you've got that buffer to tide you over were the worst to happen and you were out of work and had to go and find alternative work. It gives you a bit of breathing space. So do not lose sight of that. This isn't fear-mongering or wishful thinking, because I don't want a collapse, a massive collapse anytime really, but I am conscious that it is a potential reality, and it seems to be becoming more of a potential reality as we head through this year. It's been a pretty disastrous year all round really, and there's no sign yet of that little light at the end of the tunnel. Anyway, enough of the doom and gloom. Let's look forward a little bit. The other thing I was going to talk about was what's happening potentially over the next few weeks here at the cabin. I have talked about this in previous videos, the Polytunnel Mark II. The good news is it is looking to be more of a reality. I am waiting now for supplies of materials to arrive. I doubt highly they're going to come today, but I am, fingers crossed, hopeful that they should start at least arriving tomorrow. I've been doing lots of measuring up outside, and perhaps after this cabin chat I'll just quickly run outside and give you a visual overview rather than me sitting here and talking, because you can't visualise just by looking at me talking away. So I'll have a little run around outside and just kind of give you a flavour of what I'm thinking of. But generally it is an attachment to the existing cabin structure. Materials for construction, I've seen this mentioned in a few American channels that I follow. Availability and pricing. Pricing has gone through the roof. pretty much everywhere. And that's down to, I suspect, two things. First is a genuine shortage of supply. The COVID crisis has definitely had an impact on both production capacity of the places where the materials are produced and in supply chain. Things aren't moving around the world as quickly and as easily as they used to do. And you should bear that in mind, not just for materials, but for, more essentially, food. I'm not going to that in this video, but don't lose sight of the supply chain. The supply chain covers everything that you can possibly think of, and pretty much everything that you can possibly think of isn't just made in your country. Generally, a lot of it comes from other places around the world. So yeah, materials. We've always had an issue here in the UK with the price of this stuff, timber, lumber, as the Americans call it. It's never been cheap here. It's always been expensive because we do import it. But it has definitely increased in price as we've gone through this year. And more importantly, it just isn't there in the normal outlets. I've been looking for timber, the same framing materials that you see around me in the cabin, because I am going to construct it in a very similar fashion to the cabin. A simple timber frame and then cladded with the stuff that's on the roof, actually, this corrugated plastic sheeting. And it is in short supply and the price has gone up. I have managed to source the timber and I'm hoping that that's going to arrive this weekend, probably tomorrow. But I've had a hell of a job trying to get this plastic. All types of plastic seem to be in short supply. Clear plastic sheets, just solid like this kind of flat surface sheet, you can't get it, or if you can get it, you can't afford to buy it. COVID in particular has caused huge disruption to supply of plastic sheeting, as lots of businesses, in fact every business almost, has run around scrabbling to try and put these protective screens at the checkouts, or in office space where they've used it to partition off open plan office. God knows how much plastic sheeting has been consumed this year trying to implement all of these different COVID restrictions that government has placed on business. So the knock-on effect for that is that people like myself who are looking for small scale projects, we just can't get it. Or if somebody says, yeah, I've got some, they're asking the earth and I can't afford to pay the earth. So yeah, cabin extension for Polytunnel version 2. Lots of benefits of having the polytunnel. I'm going to have to stop calling it a polytunnel because it isn't going to be a polytunnel. Let's call it a greenhouse or a conservatory. That's posh, isn't it? My cabin conservatory. My green room. Having that attached to the cabin brings lots of benefits. I will lose in that it won't be as large as the existing polytunnel, which is 6 metres by 3 metres. I can't stick that on the end of the cabin. It's just right now too big, and it would cost far too much, because it would be the size of the existing cabin. It wouldn't be an extension, it would be another cabin, and I can't afford to do that. I just don't have the money to do that. And possibly I wouldn't have the time and the materials to do that. So it is going to be smaller scale than the existing polytunnel, but from a benefit perspective, lots of benefits. Off the top of my head, they'll include the issue of having to top up water will go away, because I can tap direct into the water supply to the cabin, so it'll be a direct pipe feed. I won't be transferring water into containers to then have it pumped around. It will just be a direct feed supply. So watering will become far, far simpler. Kind of connected to that, the power supply for the water pump will also be direct feed connected from the cabin. So no more of this battery box and no more of this having to charge up the battery box at regular intervals. It'll help the cabin itself. It provides a bit more structure. So there's a mutual benefit in that the polytunnel will be supported by the cabin will be supported or given additional rigidity against the weather by the new polytunnel. So more robust structure, and clearly that's the number one benefit for me, because that existing polytunnel you will have seen in previous videos. It's been a nightmare and a constant source of worry since day one, when I first erected the first version of the polytunnel. Sat there in that type of construction material, it's massively exposed to the elements, particularly the wind. The structure of the existing polytunnel, as you know, is not sufficient to withstand the weather conditions I get here. Prevailing wind comes over what is miles and miles and miles of flat farmland until it hits me on the boundary of that wood line behind me. So the polytunnel gets full force of that. So even what will be a relatively moderate wind from the topography, it's a good word, topography, of the land, the wind is exacerbated, it's made bigger and stronger just due to the nature of the land when it arrives here. So yeah, I won't have that constant worry, because it's going to be a far more substantial, robust structure, and I can sleep easy at night, fairly confident that it's not going to blow down in the night, because if it does, everything else here is going to go as well. So yeah, it would have to be a hurricane to take it out, but hey, never say never, you don't know. Another benefit, which might not be readily apparent, there will be an element of heat exchange between the cabin and the new polytunnel garden room. That's what we'll call it, the garden room. There will be a mutual benefit in terms of maintaining temperature. The garden room will provide a little element of heating for the cabin, and vice versa. When it's a cold, miserable day like today, the wood fire from the cabin, because it's directly connected through a doorway, will help to maintain temperature in the garden room. Gotta get used to saying that now, the garden room. Finally, another benefit, don't know if you've noticed or not, but I mean, the cabin door is literally here, and actually I'm starting to feel that now, because I suspect I need to put some more wood on. Yeah, I do. I need to put some more wood on the fire. I'm starting to feel a chill come through the door, but the door is literally right there at the side of me, and I'm walking out of the cabin directly onto what is now a muddy grass field. So as I move in and out of the cabin, I am, if it's wet outside, I am trailing in wet on my boots, my footwear. That garden room will provide another benefit, in that I'll be coming from the outside into that garden room. I have the opportunity then to either wipe off my feet before I come in the cabin, or indeed change my footwear before I come into the cabin. So it'll just help to keep this cabin area a little more dry and clean than I can at the moment. It's probably good that you can't see looking around, because by the door I've got a piece of, actually it's not a mat, it's a humongous old towel folded up as a doormat at the cabin door to try and catch the water and mud off my feet as I walk in. So that will go, or the requirement for that will go. Connected to that, I'm prompted by looking at the door, so apologies I'm not looking at you, but equally the door faces north-northeast, so in winter time there is a bit of a shift in the prevailing wind, and that end of the cabin, the door end of the cabin, does get the driving rain. And I had noticed back at the start of the year, when we were still in last year's winter, quite often I'd open that door and I'd find a pool of water that had come through the door frame. So that will disappear once the garden room has been constructed. So lots and lots and lots of benefits. The more I think about it, the more desperate I am to get on with it and to get it done before winter. I am going to have to take up my old favourite hobbies of sawing wood and painting again, but I don't mind that. I actually quite enjoy it. Though having said that, that's just prompted me. I'm going to need some more paint because I'm not going to have enough left over from the last cabin paint, nowhere near enough, to do the new construction for the garden room. So that's just reminded me. And what's the bet in when I start looking for paint? That everybody during the COVID crisis has exhausted the supply. They've been out and bought it all to paint the fences in the garden. I just know that's coming. Anyway, that's it for the cabin chat. I need to get some more wood on that fire before I freeze. A couple of little bits of pieces of jobs to do in here. I might have a little play in the polytunnel and pull a few plants out, but not a great deal more. I picked up some petrol for the little red tractor, so I'm going to put that in the garage. There's always something to do. So before I forget, I will give you that little guided tour outside, but I'll just quickly put some wood on that fire before I do that. Well, I've rescued the fire. I'll just give you a quick run around outside to show you where this garden room is going to go. Don't know if you can hear or see, but there's a little aeroplane just taking off over there. It's not wanting to focus, but it's definitely there just above those trees across the top there. There is actually a very small, it's not really an airport, it's an airfield, not too far away. Went a bit crazy there with the zoom, apologies for that. I'll be sending your heads into a frenzy. Yeah, there's a small airfield about, I don't know, 3 miles, 4 miles away, a little rural thing, and I quite often get small planes coming over. Wouldn't that be nice, eh, to have your own little aeroplane? Or helicopter, better still. Anyway, I'm waffling on. This is where the garden room extension is going to go. Essentially, it's going to tag on the back of the cabin extension and pitch down this way. So it's like a kind of a mirror, almost, of the existing cabin extension, but clearly not clad in wood as the cabin is. But in that polycarbonate sheeting that I've got on the roof of the cabin there. So it will pretty much fit flush with the rear of the cabin. So wall coming off this side here with a door coming in and then coming back out towards me, and similarly from where the tractor garage extension pops out off that end wall there, and again coming out, so it'll run parallel with the tractor garage. In terms of how far out, I'm guessing probably no more than a couple of metres, between 2 and 3 metres I would have thought, coming out. So not a huge structure, but enough to give me that additional space at the back, provide a little bit of shelter for the cabin door, and more importantly a warmer room in which to set off the seeds and to house perhaps the plants that wouldn't survive out here on the field in this climate. So that's the plan. As always, best laid plans don't always reach fruition, but yeah, a similar kind of sized structure, but coming out this way and facing out north. Not the most ideal in terms of gathering heat in this climate, but I think sufficient for what I'm going to be growing. I'm not going to be growing anything tropical in there, and as always it's a big experiment, you know, until you actually start putting plants out into the new structure. You're never going to know what you can and can't grow. So as with pretty much everything that I've done this past year, it is all a learning experience. But having had that extension put onto the cabin, that'll then free up the existing polytunnel. I am tempted to use the outer plastic cover from that polytunnel as a kind of a second skin inside the garden room. Does that kind of make sense? Which will in itself help to raise the temperature in there. So you never know, even though it is kind of hanging off the north end of the cabin and that isn't the warmest place to put it, having that double skin might just tip the balance. And it'll free up that polytunnel structure. I'll be able to utilise the frame as a climbing aid for plants and a little bit of shelter for the plants that I'm putting into those what are quite considerable raised beds. I mean, they're 6 metres long. So anyway, at the moment it's all pie in the sky. We haven't got there yet, but that's the general plan, and I just thought I'd share that with you. So hopefully we'll start construction in this area over the coming weeks, and certainly by winter time we should have it all enclosed in, and as always you'll get the progress as and when it's happening on future videos. Well, I'm just taking the opportunity, the rain has actually stopped, so that's good. So I'm just taking the opportunity to get rid of these peas and parts of the cucumber plant that have died off. And I'll also take the chance to get rid of, well, not get rid of, set these strawberries aside. So I'm just going to have a little potter, taking out these old finished peas. I'm collecting the pods to save for seed. I'll soon have quite a collection of seeds from this year, so and I can reuse these pots as well. So plenty of little pottering type jobs just to keep me busy. I will save this one particular pea because it is putting out plenty of new growth, and I think I might, if I'm lucky, actually get some peas from that towards the back end of the year. But that will keep me busy for the next hour or so, just pottering around in the polytunnel. I'll get rid of some of the tomato plants as well, thin out this forest a little bit. Well, I did say I was going to have a bit of a thinning out and you can see I have. I've pruned back a lot of that squash just to see if it does anything. Cucumbers are out. Peas, apart from that one, are out. And I'm just busy shuffling around the blueberry bush plantation. Hopefully it'll be a plantation. And I'm just about to set forth on this cranberry. I've pulled trays and the strawberries outside. I'll change out the compost in those, and I think I'll just leave those strawberries in a corner somewhere to gradually dry out, because we're at that time of year now and you can see from the leaves they are dying back. But when you think how many strawberries I had, in fact the originals are still in the tubs buried. I've got to get them out yet. They're buried in this tomato forest. But when you think where I started with, I think 3 plants out of the 6 that I got actually produced. I can't even think how many I've got now. I've easily got 20-25 plants there, plus those pots inside. So I'm going to continue having a bit of a clear out. I will clear out some of the tomatoes. I'll leave the ones that have got fruit on, of which there are quite a lot. The more I dig around in here, as you can probably see there, the more I dig around, the more I find, which is a bit bizarre. So yeah, this is keeping me out of mischief. Thankfully the rain stopped and the sun is trying to come out, but I don't think it's going to do much, and the forecast says more rain later today. And when you look around the sky, it's not hard to see that it is coming. So I'll keep cracking on with this polytunnel, tidying it all up. I'll give you another look at it once I've cleared a bit more out and kind of put everything back in order for the watering system. And I've just lost an hour chatting to my neighbour in the field there and catching up. If you can see him or not, he is there. That's Gary pottering around. But it's nice to be able to catch up with the neighbours and just see what they're doing and sort of talk over what you're planning, and both of us are itching for the new year to come so we can plant out. But I'll carry on with this and I'll come back to you in a little while once it's completed, as time is, as always, flying by. Well, we've had a bit of a thin out. It's looking bare now. I've managed to get all the strawberries, including the ones that were buried under the tomatoes. I've got all those out and put them all to this end closest to the door of the polytunnel, just to let them die down for the winter. I've actually popped a couple of cuttings in these little seed trays. They're cranberries that's in there. You might remember, a long time ago it seems now, I did actually take some cuttings and pop them in these pots, or these seed trays, and I don't know if you can see, but these here all seem to have rooted, which is good news. So with a bit of luck, next year I'll have a lot more of the cranberry and the blueberry bushes from these cuttings. Everything else is pretty much as it was. I've tied up this big blueberry a little bit. I have thinned out. It might not look as if I have, but I have thinned out the tomato forest. I've left in plants where I've got green tomatoes. Indeed, I did cull some, and when I actually cut them back, only then did I discover that some of them had damn tomatoes on. So there's a few in the pile outside that I've lost. Just generally tidied up along this end, moved a couple of pots around and tidied up that cranberry. So watering system will go on by itself anyway. I don't need to worry about that. Hopefully over the next couple of days that panel will charge the battery. Let's have a quick look and see where we are. 12.6. So it is definitely charging, so that's good. I'll just have a final play with the watering system to make sure it is still watering where I need it to. I've got a big pile. I keep going to the compost pile with these cuttings. I've got this last pile to get rid of, then I can get everything put back in and away, because these black clouds are closing in everywhere from all directions. so it won't be long before it's raining again. Anyway, let me get cracked on, get rid of all of this and tidy it up. Well, I do keep adding to this compost pile, but to be fair, as fast as I add it, it does break down. You remember from, must be a couple of weeks ago now, when I cut the grass, they were piled right to the top, but it's doing its thing. It is rotting down, which is what we want. I have got a couple more pallets at the side there, so at some point I want to extend the bins, because I think they probably will want turning. So if I drag them out and restack them into another bin or two, that'll just help to turn the material so it all gets rotted down. But as always, there never is enough time. Anyway, let me get that polytunnel sorted out. It won't be long before I'm going. One quick last thing before I close the polytunnel up. I think I have mentioned it a couple of times in different videos, but I am saving seeds. So I did pick some cucumbers, but I've deliberately left them here to dry out, and I'll harvest the seeds from those. I've been selecting peas as I've gone along and popped those. Even though I have stocks of seeds, I am interested to experiment and just see how viable they are. So for example, there's some peas that I've picked off today. I'll leave those to dry out and hopefully they'll turn into these, but I will try and plant those out. I'll keep them to one side separate from my normal seeds and just experiment with them to see what happens, because it is all a learning curve, and unless you try this stuff you're never going to find out. And of course, whilst it's easy to buy seeds now, who knows how easy that will be in the future. So yeah, I'll dry some more of these peas out, add them to my little collection from this year's plants, and at some point we'll experiment with those. I was just talking to my neighbour Gary earlier on today, and amongst the various conversations that we had, seeds is in there, and knowing when to plant stuff out and experimenting with stuff to find out what works and what doesn't. That is really the key. Do it now whilst you still can go and buy seeds if you need to, rather than something hits the fan and you don't quite know what to do, whether it's how to harvest the seeds or when to plant them, or indeed if your plants are producing viable seeds, because these might not. For all I know, the seeds I planted might not be able to produce viable seeds from the plants that grow from those. This is really the only way you'll find out. Anyway, enough rambling. I need to get tidied up, locked up and get away before this rain comes. Well, that's it for another video. We're all locked up, cabin's locked up, polytunnel's tidied up and closed up for the day. The sun does keep trying to bluff by peeking out from between the clouds, but I'm not fooled. So that's it for another video. Get myself off home, get cleaned up, and we'll see what tomorrow brings. Another day of progress, which is all that counts.
Well, that's it for this video. I hope there was something in there that was of interest to you. If you did like the video, please do click on the like button. Also feel free to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. As always, I welcome any comments, questions or suggestions you might have. Just feel free to leave them in the comments section below. But for now, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.